Hello. All right. It's 8:30. Um, it's Friday night, and you see me a bit stressed, not like your usual uh uppity up, because as you can see, I'm all alone in the studio. I, and I've tried this new setup for streaming in in different platforms as well. So it kind of blurred everything around, and but nevertheless, we're here. So it's Friday, and for tonight, actually, the plan of the stream tonight is actually quite simple. You see, it's just me talking to you about the things I wished I knew before I started out in this hobby. I've noticed that there are a lot of new people, new GMs, new players getting interested in the game of tabletop RPGs, but the common pitfalls always emerge about where to begin, what do I need to start playing, and address some misconceptions or assumptions about the hobby. So that's where and the entire the entire stream would revolve around. So, well, with that out of the way, and it's Friday night, you know, it's the start of the weekend. What better way to start it off with some hobby stuff? Let's shift to. All right. So in case you guys didn't know, uh, a Humble Bundle is having like this massive RPG book sale. It's for charity, and in this bundle, I'm so excited about this bundle because it's like roll big or go home. It deals with almost 57 books, I believe. Yeah, these are like 57 RPG books. We could quickly check on it before we start tonight's or for me discussing about the things I wished I knew when I started out, for everyone's for the newbies actually entering the hobby. So, why I'm excited about this Humble Bundle is because there are like 57 games in it. Because the first three already can give you an idea. It's like one of its Avatar Legends. The second one is the Transformers one. Then we have Modern Age. Apocalypse World. This one's kind of curious to me because it looks like your Mad Max or yeah, mostly Mad Max post-apocalyptic survival game. And one of my favorites also here is Cyberpunk Red. There are a lot of Savage Worlds as I check this Humble Bundle. This one's one of it, the Weird West. They also have the Warhammer Fantasy one, uh, the Grimdark one. They also the Spire, the City Must Fall, and this one's kind of my one of my that got me peaked. Punk is Dead. So it's a post-apocalyptic songwriting tabletop RPG. So I just recently finished watching K-pop Demon Hunter, and I enjoyed the story of it. I enjoyed the animation and the action of it. And I told Ravi about this one. I messaged Ravi and told him that, hey, have you seen this Netflix film? It's so cool because it seems that it can be placed in a tabletop RPG. Like using songs, using uh, creative lyrics, like an improvisational tool, so that it increases your attack, and those lines. You get to play as a hunter, or you get to play as a demon, and everyone's trying to be like this K-pop idol. So you have the aspects of being a K-pop idol, like getting fans. It's gonna be or my mechanic. And I was just trying to nitpick the entire anime, the film, and break it down into what's a cool thing that can be done mechanically to make this feel and emulate certain aspects of the show, of the movie. And because I enjoyed it so much, and I told Ravi that maybe we could do sit down and break down the movie and see what we can get out of it. And that's why I got a segment away. But yeah, I was curious about this one. Punk is Dead, post-apocalyptic songwriting. We have Wild Sea as well, another sci-fi fantasy-ish. Dishonored is here. This is from a video game, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And then we have Mazes, fantasy role-playing. Okay, it's another fantasy game. This one's a cute one. They came from beneath the sea, and I enjoy the art here because it also says something here that a tabletop role playing game of B movie greatness. So it gives me the idea that maybe we're gonna be role playing as your creature feature films. The old creature feature films like Jaws or something. I didn't see in the art. I mean, this is kind of inspired from Jaws, except for the octopus. Change the octopus to the shark. You also have Call of Cthulhu, and then you have Shield Maidens as well. Another, it looks like sci-fi fantasy again. We get the shield and the laser gun, and then we have Household, and then Night's Black Agents, which is a vampire spy thriller. Reminds me of Blade for some reason. And right beside it, you have Dragonbane as well. One of the editors of RD3 happens to be her first RPG actually is Dragonbane. So, Tabby, guess what? If we get this humble bundle, I get to read as well alongside you on Dragonbane. And this one's also for Ravi. There's also the cipher system here. I don't think. Is this? Oh yeah, this is one. And then there's also Root, then G.I. Joe, and then we also a second one from Modern Age as well, another setting book. And then we have Under Hollow Hills. And this one's kind of curious. It looks like a circus, a whimsical fantasy circus. You give me that vibe because of the font. And right beside this, we have The Witcher by R.R. Talsorian as well. From the game. This one's interesting. It piqued my interest, this one. And we have another Savage Worlds, Riffs, maybe a setting book. Player's Guide. We have Doctor Who. We have Rhapsody of Blood. It looks like a fantasy game. Be Like a Cat. And look, it's a solo 2-player role-playing game. I play like a cat. Just a tidbit, because life's been very hectic and responsibilities are always piling. I don't have much time to play with my play group constantly, and I've fall in love with the little tiny solo play RPGs, wherein it teaches me to journal, and yeah, I'm getting a little bit of love coming from solo play RPGs at the moment, because of the fact that I don't get to play with my group currently because of life and responsibilities. So, Be Like a Cat could be a new game on my list. We also have Slug Blaster here. Homeworld Revelations. Kobold Ate My Baby. The Orange Book. This one looks cute. Trinity Continuum. Basic role playing. This is general. Another Shield Maidens. Oh, one of my wish lists. Outgunned this year. This one looks like your John Wick. That's why I also enjoy this on my wish list, because I think we get to play like an action hero here. You can see from the art. Mutant City Blues as well is here. Contemporary superpowers. Looks like a superhero game. And then you have Vasen, Tidal Blades, Masks, the new generations here. Oh, my superhero teen drama is here. We have Power Rangers, and then another Modern Age, another setting book. And then King is Dead, Castle Frankenstein. Oh, this one's interesting. Pine Box Middle School. This one reminds, if CJ's in chat or watching one of our D3, get well soon, guys. I mean, everyone's down with the flu, by the way. So, get your vitamin C's up. But this one, just to share, Pine Box Middle School reminds me of Kids on Bikes. I mean, literally, these are kids on bikes with monster tendrils coming out. So we also have Doctor Who. Another Doctor Who is this? Another setting book, I guess. Yeah, it's a setting book. No, it's a starter set. Sorry. Okay, so we have a starter set, the core book and the starter's kit. Okay. And then we have Goblin Quest. Looks a bit cute. Be Like a Crow. Another solo RPG. So I have Be Like a Cat and Be Like a Crow. Okay, I have to roleplay as two animals. Next is a Neapolitan trilogy. Looks World War One. We roleplay as World War One. Soldiers. Yeah, World War One soldiers. Be more specific based on the art. Dreams and Machines. Another sci-fi-ish. Yeah, is it? Yep. Oh, Sentai and Sensibilities. This one's interesting. There's a game called where we roleplay as Victorian era aristocrats, good society, and this one's an interesting twist on it. So we're Victorian era aristocrats, but at the same time Power Rangers. So we save the world while forging relationships of intrigue and rumor. Sentai and Sensibilities. And then we have Scion, second edition. It looks like another occult game. It gives me that vibe, though, but could be wrong. We have Rune Quest. Then we have Shield Maidens as well. Memento Mori. Fear Itself. Symbarium, another core book, and the Devil's Dandy book. Devil's Dandy Dogs. Alright. So these, okay, a lot of these I haven't played, but I'm so curious about the rest. I'm actually excited. So, in other words, yeah, as you can see, if you want to help support the Children's Miracle Network hospitals, you can get all these books, all these 57 books, for just $40 roughly. Or if you're in the Philippines, it's 2,200 pesos. And 68 as here. 63, yeah, 2263 or 2268, yeah. And I was thinking as well, since these are a lot of books, and if we get like players, I was also hoping that maybe we also get to host, I guess, some of the games. If you just scan the QR code, and if you enjoy the stream and all that, you can just scan and maybe like donate, and we could get this humble bundle kit, and just comment down maybe your Discord or where can we contact you, and once we get the humble bundle kit, we get to play, we can get to organize either online or face to face if you wanted to. That's where my mind is going. I'm just really stoked and actually kind of excited about these humble bundles, because just like the first time I saw this type of bundle wherein it literally just really says roll big or go home. So yeah, with that now, that was a good like a quick icebreaker and all that. I guess it's time to get into the nitty gritty of things. Since I will be alone in the studio, I'm alone in the studio recording at the moment. Once again, this stream tonight is like intended for beginners, like who are really curious but don't know where to start in RPGs, tabletop RPGs specifically. So, what is a tabletop RPG? Um, in a nutshell, tabletop RPGs is a collaborative storytelling exercise where players act out characters in a shared world guided by the rules and imagination collectively. So, yes, if you're watching this stream and you got interested, this is the only sentence that you need to know in order to understand what tabletop RPGs are about. You know, it's a collaborative storytelling game. There we go. And then again, the first question, I guess, for a new beginner is where do we start? And so, how to start? What you need to start in a tabletop RPG usually entails you picking up some of the friends, 2 to 5, ideally, of your close friends, and you're gonna be picking a system that all of you would agree upon and role play as. And then most systems would need dice, either a D20, D6, D10. You could quickly get those in Lazada or Shopee. And then if you're playing, and with the age of internet and all that, a platformer you guys can communicate, because mostly the hobby entails people to describe and interact with one another. So maybe if you're playing long distance or online, a voice platform like Discord could come in handy. Or if it's face to face, then yeah, maybe meet in a cafe. You know. One more thing, and what I would say as when you begin in tabletop RPGs is, and this is, I guess, would be very important, especially in starting groups, when one would be tasked to be the game master or dungeon master, is you don't need to be the expert of the rules right there and then. You know, the real fun in tabletop RPGs comes from exploring the rules as everyone plays it, and just be excited. Actually, sometimes there will be new groups, new tables, or new GMs that would want a little more guidance, you know, on how the game is played or how the game is run. So what happens is sometimes publishers give out one-shots or pre-generated characters or the starter kits. That is also a good starting place to pick up when you're trying to begin in this hobby, the tabletop RPG hobby. So to recap, just regarding what you guys need to start, is you just need a group of friends, 2 to 5. It's good. Pick a system, you know, pick a rule set. By default, because of the popularity of the system, Dungeons and Dragons or D&D is always a safe bet because it's easily accessible and quickly picked up. And then get some dice, a D20. Yeah, mostly D20s, D6s, just a couple of dice. And pen and paper. That's it. So that's all you need to get started in the hobby. It can be overwhelming, especially when you join into larger communities and when you see other communities like show some terrain, minis, or maybe the extra costumes or setups. Those are just accessories and in lieu of deeper roleplay, as one would say. But it's not required. All you have to do is just pick up a rule set, some dice, a pen and paper, and that's it. So that's all you need to start playing the game. Now, the first question now with new groups. So you've gathered your friends, and they've all agreed to play RPGs with you. Uh, the next question that comes up is, what kind of system do I pick up? You know, when I began in this hobby in tabletop RPGs, the default was always D&D, and until roughly after a year or two, I started to branch out in other systems and discover other RPGs because of the limitations of the rule set what D&D provides. Um, and this is a good way to tell new groups or players that D&D is the big ticket, like the most popular one, but it's not necessarily the only one out there. Um, right now, when it comes to picking a system, as when I get curious about other RPGs, is I pick which vibe I want out of the RPG. Like either if they want to go heavy combat, or if the table or my group would rather prefer a more narrative structured game. And just starting with those two choices can quickly narrow down your scope. So one can ask, if my group prefers a story, the next question is, okay, let's say I'm gonna be looking for the right system for me. There are D&D, Pathfinder, Cyberpunk Red. Those are more combat-oriented systems. Like 90% of the rules are focused on combat. You could see that in the character sheet as well. So to backtrack a bit, so that it doesn't get overwhelming with new players. Tabletop RPGs, as I mentioned earlier, is about collaborative storytelling. And the rule set that we pick up gives us tools to help facilitate the story that we want to tell at the table. So most RPGs provide GM tools and provide player tools, and these come in the form, for the player, these tools come in the form of your character sheet. And in your character sheet, you have most of the things you need to know and the things that you can play around in order to help your GM tell a story. And so that's why that's why I want to discuss like choosing the right system for the play group, because it's the one that's at its core actually. In order to facilitate like good proper storytelling for everyone. And where was I? All right. Then, oh, I was having a distraction with the other stuff here. Okay. There was like a notification on my PC right there. It's taking a lot. But let me just fix things up. There we go. So where was I? Okay. Okay, so as I mentioned, like RPGs have this collection. Yeah, when you're picking a system, sorry. You're picking a system, and each system, like for example, let's say, yeah, Avatar Legends for here. And in Avatar Legends, everyone role plays as a bender. And you can see as you read the book, it would present you with tools to your character sheet and rules to facilitate how your character goes around in the world of Avatar. You know, there might be rules on bending, elemental bending, and all that. And maybe you could create a character like Aang in the game. So it also facilitates that. So that's why think of the rule set or the system of the RPG that you pick as toolkits, a collection of guidelines, mechanics, and structures, all right, to help facilitate and enhance the shared storytelling. That's it. That's basically what the system is. So if you want a system that is high fantasy and rather high fantasy, dungeon diving, delving, and or fighting dragons and large creatures, yeah, D&D is up your alley. But if you want a more, let's say, a more casual narrative-based game, maybe pick up something from Power with the Apocalypse, or maybe Run Fate, or such a rules light and such focused on narrative games. And here is where a bit of my perspective comes in when it comes to picking up rule set. So the rules support and not control. So think of it this way: the rules exist to support imagination, fairness, and consistency. And it's not going to limit creativity. And this is going to provide common language so everyone at the table can collaborate smoothly. And then this is one of the biggest examples of why, in my opinion, I prefer before, if the wait, let me get my thoughts right. They provide a common language so everyone at the table can collaborate smoothly. So I remember now. Okay, remember when there are like horror movies, and the common trope in horror movies is that there's always like this single bullet that kills the monster. That is fine if we're running a game focused on horror, right? That's a trope right there. That's good. But imagine that kind of trope placed in, let's say, your action adventure story beat, or let's say put that rule in let's say your Lord of the Rings, and it's gonna be like this over the top, and your entire table is just gonna go berserk, seeing that a single pistol bullet would kill a large dragon, in one turn. And having that kind of disconnect in terms of the rules is what separates everything else. So, where was I? All right. When okay, I'm using my train of thought. You can do this. Okay, so having okay, I'm now blanking. It's Friday night, and oh, okay, there you go. That was it. Okay, so let me just rephrase that: different tools for different stories. That's also one thing why picking a rule set from an RPG is also important, because it also presents the entire table with the game designers' point of view on what they think the type of story should emerge from the RPG. So let's give, for example, D&D as an example here. Once you read the entire rule set of D&D, especially 5th edition, you'd notice that everything is very action-oriented. Like, you can see how powerful your character is for a player through the spells, through the abilities, through the feats. So you already get this type of tool set that gives the type of story that once I play D&D, I get this superhero fantasy vibe. You know, a hero that goes above and beyond and tries to save the world, so to speak. And finally, it's a GM toolbox. Each rule set also gives, each system also gives the GM tools in order to facilitate a living world. May it be a fantasy or a sci-fi or cyberpunk. So it boils down to three things that if you're a new GM and or a new player, all you have to think about is three things in terms of this hobby. Rule number one is the GM creates the world. So the GM's responsibility is to create a world wherein the players can play in. Number two, the players create characters that want something in the GM's world. So this means that each RPG that you play, you always have to create a character that wants something in the GM's world. That's where motivation and interest drives the story. And finally, rule number three is that the story emerges from GM and player collaborating and playing the game together. And looking back at my younger self, I would say that the third rule is the one that's most important, because I've seen or I've read a lot of comments wherein there are new GMs that maybe over prepare or have a lot of written as like a lot of plot lines, and those things get derailed because come game day the players go on a tangent, really, like they choose a different path, and sometimes GMs get frustrated with that, and it's a whole mess actually. But in hindsight, the third rule of saying that the story is when the players and GM play the game is the most important rule in an RPG, because that's true. We're just collaborating to tell a story, and this is just another way of telling a story because we follow certain rules and certain actions. So as a GM, it's also a tip for new GMs right there.
Wow.
Once you begin your GMing to your group, just make sure to prepare the things that would be necessary to start playing. Basically, maybe the monsters that they would be facing for this session, the rewards that they would get upon succeeding in the scenario or the quest that you gave them, and just react toward the situations, react to the choices that your players give you. And that's the best way and the best feeling a player can get, is if their choices really do matter and if their choices really carry weight. Okay, so when choosing your right system, I can never answer that. That's the hardest thing to answer, mainly because I don't know your playgroup really. So here's also a thing that can come to mind when starting out in tabletop RPGs is like a clear, concise communication between players and GM. Like asking the playgroup what they want to play as, or what do they feel as playing. Do they feel like playing as superheroes? Then maybe pick out a superhero system. If they feel like playing like a pirate game, then pick out a system that centered around pirates, or a pirate story, RPG type of thing. And that's where everything boils down to actually in this hobby, is that there's no like specific. It's not science. It's more art than science. if to put it mildly, because all we get to do is, yeah, I'm getting lost again. So yeah, so you pick out the right system, and I know I can recommend some things. We can recommend some things here. Is that you could go specific to the genre. Like for example, if you want fantasy, go ahead, pick D&D. If you want horror, maybe Call of Cthulhu. If you want sci-fi, you can go Lancer. Well, that's mostly mech. If you feel like you want to play like a JRPG, maybe Fabula Ultima is also fine. A slice of life or like a chill RPG could also mean Wonderhome. A mystery could be Brindlewood Bay. And or if you want just comedic and light RPG, then just pick Honey Heist as well. So I guess go where your table and where your group enjoys what they enjoy best, actually. That's a takeaway when you're choosing the system. And I hope that also eases the new GM not to get overwhelmed with a lot of systems. If you want, or if you guys want, you could message us or, comment down below on what games you're currently playing or planning to play, and maybe share some anecdotal stories from your game table, because we want to hear you guys as well when it comes to maybe what systems or games on their wish list for your play group do you plan on playing or plan on hosting, or even just considering picking up and play. Now, so you've have your friends. I told you already where to begin, like a good starting point. Getting your friends, picking up a starter kit or a system that you want to play in, a set of dice, pen and paper. So you're done. That's where you start. Now you pick your system as a second step. Let's say you pick D&D. You want to play fantasy straight up, because yeah, your table prefers combat. Table prefers combat. They want to be heroics, superheroes, level up and be as powerful as they can be. All right. Now the third thing for a newbie to our new play group to enter the hobby is the roles. Be familiar with the roles in RPGs. There's only actually two roles in an RPG. It's either you be a player or a game master. So the game master controls everything else, the scene, NPCs, the world, the monsters, while the players play their character. Now, that's in the traditional sense. There are now newer RPGs, like earlier, if in the humble bundle wherein it's about playing as a cat, or a crow wherein you only play as solo, or even there are some designers right now in terms of RPG that go GM-less, what we call GM-less. So there's now some changes in terms of the roles in tabletop RPGs. But in the traditional sense, all you need to learn is that there's only a player, and there's also a game master or a GM, DM, GM, director, depends on the system that you pick. So here's my tip that I always give, or if I could tell my younger self, is that you don't need to be an actor or a writer to play tabletop RPGs. You just be willing to play pretend. That's the whole takeaway from this one. I've seen, as I mentioned earlier, that there are times when new players enter the hobby and feel as if they need to perform, do voices, have an accent, have complex backstories and all that jazz. But it's not necessary. You can be as simple and just, you don't need to do the voices. You don't need to have a complex drama backstory. All you have to do is, as long as you create a character, you're good. You're good to go. You can play, Also, when it comes to being a writer for GMs, you don't need to plot everything. Only use what's necessary for the session at hand. Everything else, Just go with the flow, That's why there's a saying that don't plot, just create scenarios. Just run scenes, scenarios, scenarios, scenarios. I can expand on that maybe on a later video, but maybe not in the stream, or maybe in a more structured video, I guess, when it comes to plotting and scenarios. But nevertheless, for new play groups, yeah, just go ahead. Yeah, no one's an actor. No, you're not performing to an audience. You don't owe it to anyone. You know, just enjoy, play pretend. It's a collaborative storytelling. And that's it. And then, so now you've seen the roles, you've chosen your system, and you have your bunch of dice and your pen and paper and your friends. So the next one is trying to learn the rules. Now this is where sometimes it gets tricky in learning the rules. What I usually do for beginners is that I usually share the books along with my players, and we all read it together. Like the major ones, like how skill checks are done, and or how combat is done, and we get familiar with it. We run scenarios, as mentioned. We run scenarios and make sense of everything before we start playing. That's how I do it before, but now and that's also another suggestion that I can give new tables, is that just break it down. Everyone sit together and share the book and just read. I guess there's no other way looking at it if you have a starter rule set. You can, however, like watch live plays. That could also ease you. That's another solution, is watching live plays in order to see how the scene goes, how skill resolutions work, how combat is run, and get you the feel of how the gameplay goes. That's also another way. Or you could join, or another way in order to learn another system is maybe message us here in RD3. If you have a game system that you wanna like run or play, but you don't have like the play group, yeah, you shoot us a message and we could schedule a play session with you, so that we also get to learn a new game. Because sometimes there's only so much I could do and read in a week, and play as well. I have a ton of backlogs of RPGs that I'm so excited to get to play, but I couldn't. But it's it just gets, yeah. What am I saying? I'm getting too worked up on my mind. It's just racing with a lot of things that I want to say. Yeah. So where was I? All right. Yeah. So shoot us a message. That's what I want to get. If you have a game and you need players, just message us on RD3. We could schedule a game. We could be your players, or maybe I could be a GM. Who knows? And we'll see where it goes. Where was I? All right. So you've learned it. My suggestion there was like sitting down with your play group and reading the rule book. Some rule books are really short and very concise. Because the thing I want to share, I guess, is learn by doing. Yeah, that's one tip for new players and new GMs or new play groups as well entering the hobby, is just play. Play is the best teacher. If there are questions that come up or rules that are vague, yeah, then everyone can consult the book and check it after the game. But just to get a feel of how the gameplay loop goes, especially for a GM, a new GM, yeah, it's better to start just playing, how the scene goes, how this monster combat goes, is there a rule on non-combat social encounters, those can come in handy as well. Uh, so I think I offered three solutions. The first one is to read with the group. The second one is to watch actual play. And I think the third one is maybe some publishers also give out starter kits, or like a condensed version of the rules. That can also be a good start so that you don't get to be overwhelmed with all the nuanced rules that come in. So that's like the three. Also, my tip when it comes to watching actual play videos is don't feel pressure to perform. I've noticed when 5th edition D&D became so popular that there's a certain play style suddenly emerging and a certain GM style as well. And I've noticed that. Like the high drama, the very complex character backstories, uh, GMs trying to do voices and all that. These aren't like strong required for a play group, especially when you're starting out. You don't need to perform. All you have to do, if you can't do voices, just describe how your character does the action. It's all good, as long as clear communications have been set. Like everyone at the table knows what your character is doing. And as a GM, everyone at the table knows where their characters are, what they can see, and what they can interact with. That's the key principle here, especially when in this game, in this hobby. Actually, before we get to deeper more, there's like a post that I think I want to share. This one. This one's a Reddit post. This one's a good Reddit post I just encountered today before starting out stream and before getting, everything everything up and running on my end here. So it just says something along those lines as this Reddit. Is it even for me? As in this one encapsulates, I guess, majority of the new players and or new GMs that enter the hobby. So I'll just read it for everyone out. It says here, so I've been into actual play shows for a couple of years now, mainly Dimension 20 and a bit of Critical Role. And they're what got me interested in D&D in the first place. I love the idea of it, adventuring, fighting monsters, uncovering mysteries, making choices that shape the journey. Stuff like Skyrim, Dragon Age, Baldur's Gate 3 are literally my top 3 video games because they let me live out that kind of experience. This is what I observed with a lot of new players and GMs who enter the hobby. It's either through Critical Role, Dimension 20, Stranger Things, is what got them interested because of the activity of the shared storytelling experience. Like, oh, my choices matter. Like I just said to the GM if I can do this, and it allows me. It gives you that creative freedom that you won't experience usually in a video game. So that's where most of the new players and GMs get excited about in the hobby. So now, here we go. Here is the second part. And that's why this person asked Edgelord Loner mentioned that is the hobby even for me? Because the 7th paragraph goes, but the more I look at how people talk about D&D online, especially on TikTok and Reddit, the more I feel like the core of D&D might not be what I'm looking for. It seems like storytelling is the main focus for a lot of people. And don't get me wrong, I like a good story. But I'm more into the gameplay side of things. I love a good narrative, but not if it's at the expense of mechanics, problem solving, or meaningful choices that come from actual playing the game. When the vibe becomes the story is king, the game is secondary. I kind of check out. Now here, this one is where I would say the entire hobby separates. Each table is different. Each GM is different. Even players are different, especially now that There are a lot of variables that make what we can all consider as, maybe this is a good D&D game, or maybe this is a good RPG game, from a bad RPG game. Um, the thing here is that the the story or the fun experience of an RPG emerges when everyone at the table agrees, like is comfortable and is willing to play pretend and play along. I guess that's the only word I can think of at the moment, yeah, to describe everything. Um, because this is also where sometimes conflicts happens or friction happens at the table, because there might be a player that's more narrative focused and takes combat, just uh, willy nilly, while there are some players that want very tactical and very strategic combat, but takes the story willy nilly as well. And the same goes with the GM. There can be a GM that favors more on the narrative and the story, but combat is just willy nilly. So if you have these three types of, let's say, preferences at the table, it's a matter of who is willing to compromise. And this is where preferences and expectations, and I would, no, not preferences and expectations, but rather this is where clear, concise communication comes in. Because if one player wants narrative, the other player wants combat, and the GM has a style of going narrative, so that means like that's 2 to 1, two would enjoy narrative while one just enjoys combat. So it's either everyone adjusts, or the one who loves combat makes finds a middle ground between what can you compromise in order to favor the narrative, and at the same time, for those that love the narrative, what can you do to compromise to favor the one who enjoys combat? And that actually is the biggest bulk of why some groups don't last or fizzle out or maybe end up in a subreddit of RPG horror stories, is because of either GM incompatibility and or player incompatibility. So if I were my younger self at the moment, I would say this, and this can apply to all new GMs and all new play groups. You don't owe it to anyone. It's all right. It's all right if you cancel your campaigns or if things don't work out. It's not that you're a bad GM, or it's not that you're a bad player. It can be a lot of factors, to be honest. And that's also the interesting part. I don't know the dynamics of any table, and when there are problems arising, the only way to solve it, that's why the default of the community all the time is talk to your group, talk to your group, talk to your group, because it's true that the only solution is communicating with your play group, actually, to get a root cause on what's hindering the fun. And I observe that most times the fun gets hindered when there is a pushback on certain approaches to the game, And yeah, this second paragraph tells it that this person, this edgelord loner, prefers combat. It prefers combat because he or she came from a video game background. So what brought this person to the hobby is the love for that freedom tactical choice. But seeing that most tables are played a certain way, the high drama, high narrative, it feels that the hobby is not for him or her, which is totally untrue. Now, the third paragraph, it says here, the second issue is more of a logistics one. Everyone says D&D is best played with close friends, but I don't really have close friends who are into nerdy stuff like this. The people I do know who are into it are more like acquaintances, and honestly, they're not the kind of folks I'd want to collaborate with. They tend to be really rigid, not great at compromise, and not the type you'd want to build a world or party with. So that leaves me looking at playing with strangers, which just feels like a gamble, or with people I don't think I'd make a good team with. This is also the third one. This also applies on, I would say, in my observation of the current state of how D&D groups are formed. When I started out in the hobby, it's always just my close friends and or family or like a close circle, of people that I invite to when I run my games or when I host games. When I pick up a new RPG and said, "Oh, I have this new game, and we can play," you know. But there came a point wherein in the hobby I prefer to, oh, maybe I want to meet people that have the same interests as me, because another true thing here is that D&D, not all friends can be D&D friends or a TTRPG friend, because of the different uh, energy and passion, you put into it. So I have to branch out, and this is where I branched out, and this is where I kind of met with RD3, and here we are right now, who are currently sick, and I hope you guys get well soon, with this flu season coming around the corner. So that's how I met. So they're more enthusiastic about tabletop RPGs, playing different systems, and enjoying the storytelling side of things. But some of them also enjoy the combat side of things. So they have different play styles. But what we always make sure that once we play, we always account for everyone's fun at the table. And this is where I could give an advice to a new GM is you are not the only one responsible in facilitating the fun. Even the players need to know, have the responsibility, even the players have the responsibility to facilitate the fun at the table. All right? It's not only solely on the GM. It's the entire table. And that's why I don't understand when the ones I see usually complaining or asking advice on how to manage their tables are the GMs. It's like they've already have a lot on their plate, like setting up the session and maybe logistics or scheduling or maybe reading the rules, referencing and all that. But then they also have the responsibility of like keeping the table entertained for like the next 2 hours or the next 4 hours. And I think that's counterproductive, actually, if you ask me. And also one of the reasons why GM burnout is so huge, because it puts a lot of responsibility and strain to the GM and makes the GM feel more of an entertainer rather than a player as well at the table. And that's the thing I want to give out for new players and new groups get formed, is that the GM is also a player. They only have a different responsibility. They have more character sheets to manage, come in the monster stat block depending on the system, while you on the players they only have the character sheet with you. So it's still the same. It's just a different perspective on the table. And I also understand the frustration here is that sometimes when I began again in this hobby, when I started in this hobby, most of my close friends, college friends, theater buddies, would just take RPGs as, there's a social gathering approach, less on a game and more on like social gathering. There's a hangout, and at the beginning, I also felt that kind of pain as a GM because I've put in a lot of work or I've put in effort here for everyone to engage, but it seems like they prioritize something else more rather than the game, and that's completely fine. I came to embrace that truth as well in the hobby, and now I still continue playing RPGs with them, but in a more fresh lens perspective, as you could say, because I suddenly like I suddenly understand how they want to approach the hobby, and I adjusted and I compromised to do that, you know, and it's better that way. The same with when I'm running or being a player at someone else's game, you know, I get to quickly adjust to the table's dynamic, you know. If the table prefers more combat, then I'm willing to adjust and prefer on a more combat approach. If the table is a more roleplay heavy or narrative, then give it a shot, you know. Compromise where can be. Uh, and that's actually the biggest takeaway here from what I've just said regarding this third paragraph is just the willingness to play along. I've been saying, I think it is like the second time I said learn to play along. I will see. But yeah, as soon as everyone at the table is willing to play along, everything's gonna flow smoother. And now we get to the last part. All of all of this has me wondering, is D&D even for me? I want to go on cool fantasy adventures and make choices that matter, but I'm not sure that's the actual playing experience is like. What the actual playing experience is like when you're not watching it on YouTube. See, so as you can see, there is this, yeah, I would say rose-tinted glasses at times when new GMs or new players enter the hobby because they think that it's played that way once you watch a live or you watch an actual play video, when the truth is those actual play videos are centered around presenting to an audience. So a real home game, in my opinion, would always have a lot of discussions. There would be times wherein everyone's just rolling dice, or even if you have a GM that loves tables like myself, would be consulting random tables all the time. And I think if those were presented as actual plays, I'm sure as hell that it won't be quite a viewer entertaining experience. You know, it's not gonna be viewer friendly if those were presented as is. And I guess if I were to comment here on the post, the Reddit post here, is that all you have to do is really, really go out there, look for a like-minded group, a like-minded community, and and if ever, be open to compromise, be open to play along, be open to adjust. Because yes, I would have to emphasize this hobby is more collaborative than adversarial. Unless, again, it can be worked around. There can be tables that can establish that we're playing an RPG like adversary. So, but for now, just think everything needs to be collaborative. Everyone needs to be on the same page, right? I'm just giving an option like, oh, maybe it can be. Oh, it can be adversarial. So now we get to the next segment, which I call where to find players. That's the thing. All right, same with the Reddit post here. Where do you find players? Where can you see players? Where can you connect with players? You know, in the hobby. A good thing is, maybe for one, RD3. Here at RD3, we always play tabletop RPGs from time to time when we have time. But you can also look for players here. in the community that we're trying to form. You could also look for players in a Reddit post or a subreddit of LFG. That's a good place. That's also where I post from time to time. There are also Discord servers, like I think I can some Discord servers, community Discord-driven servers, wherein they post GMs post looking for players, while at the same time players looking for GMs at the same time. You could also go with Roll20, looking for groups. That's also an approach. And maybe if you're on Facebook, yeah, Facebook groups as well. You know, that's where you can need to find players, where you can see RPG players. Do note that when you try to look for players, especially online, try to specify the time zone, because sometimes you might play in an unpreferable time zone, or maybe, yeah, the time zone is not okay with you. Maybe you need to wake up a little early. I think I did that before when I played with a group in Eastern time. So I had to wake up really early in the morning. But then I just settled for looking for play groups with my same time zone, so that I can just play at the evening as well, where I'm more comfortable, and that's after work. and the same, there's no issue in time zones actually. So that's where you need to find players. Or, yeah, as mentioned, by default, your friend group, like your tight circle friend group. It's the safest before trying to branch out to strangers and or maybe enthusiasts as well. Now, and so you know where to find players. You already have your starter kit, so that you learn the rules already. You've determined who's going to be the GM and the players. You've chosen your right system. You've had your dice. And that's it. Start rolling. Start playing. You know? And as you can see, it's a very simple hobby if you think about it. And for advanced, I guess, if now it's that you're enjoying RPGs, let's say you want to advance further your GMing or your player side, you want to play more games or you want to GM more systems, where do you guys find like other systems or other third-party content or, adventure modules and whatnot? And here are some resources that I personally use as well, which I would tell my younger self to enjoy. Tell my younger self actually to watch around. Where is it? Ah, this one. Okay. So first and foremost, one of my favorite drive-through RPG. Oh, there's a summer sale. Really? Okay, I'll check that out afterwards. So drive-through RPG is one of my recommended places for you to be interested in RPGs. Think of drive-through RPG as like your Steam. So there's a lot of publishers, a lot of game developers sharing their games right there. That's my go-to. There are some sales happening. Like right now, there's a summer sale of free League games. So I'll check that out maybe after stream to see what's up. And this is one of those. The second one is this one. The Bundle of Holding. This one I always check because there are always sales, usually every month, on which currently it's like currently the ones in sale is His Majesty the Worm, Broken Tales, Callwood Monsters, and Troika Warehouse. So this one's something new. I haven't checked. Actually, you can see. And then the third one, HIO. HIO is a good repository of tabletop RPGs, although I would say they could improve in the searchability of things. But mostly I enjoy here because the indies are here. Yeah. Oh, see, it's hard to look. There are books. So the indie titles are here. There are a lot, and and it needs better searching for things like sorting. There are a lot. But I go here to check from time to time when I wanna check on the indie side of RPGs and pick up a few couple of titles to read. And maybe if something interests me further, that's when I pitch it to my gaming group and said, "Oh, I found this new game. Like, let's try it out." And then one more thing to look for is, for as a beginner resource, is this one. It's called Fanatical. And as you can see here in Fanatical, is that it's also almost like drive-through RPG, wherein it presents all the sales. Right now, it has a sale on Twilight 2000, which is another RPG. And you can scroll down, as not only does these offer you sales on RPGs, it also offers you sales on comics and or ebooks. So it's like a general like book store repository, I think. Yeah. And finally, as mentioned from earlier, Humble Bundle. This one's also my go-to. And at the moment, as you can see, there are this one. It's one of my favorites. Roll Big or Go Home. This one's I'm eyeing. So if you guys want to support as well, just scan the QR and donate to charity. So there, those are the resources that I personally use, and I would tell my younger self to look for these resources when I'm gonna be starting out the hobby once again. So it's gonna be Drive-Thru RPG, itch.io, Fantasyverse, and Bundle of Holding, and Humble Bundle. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Humble Bundle, Bundle of Holding, Drive-Thru RPG, itch.io, and Fantasyverse.
Oh my god.
And I guess that is quite it for today's stream. So it was just like a quick recap on like essentially what happened is, yeah, tabletop RPGs is a really simple hobby to get into. You don't have to be overly complex. You don't have to spend a lot in this hobby. You could just play it as simple as pen and paper and theater of the mind. And all we have to do is just be open in collaborative storytelling and players willing to act out a shared world guided by rules and imagination. So just to recap what we talked about, for a new gaming group, is that all you need are your friends, a rule system, pen and paper, and some dice. In choosing the right system for your gaming group, it's something that excites you as a GM and something that excites the players as well. And you can talk to the players as well regarding this. Like, do you guys enjoy like D&D or high fantasy? And then that's when you go pick D&D. And if your group just prefers horror, then maybe pick on Call of Cthulhu or maybe Mothership. And at the same time, as soon as you pick your system, all you have to do is on your gaming group select which one is going to be the player and which one's going to be the game master or DM. And once you've selected those positions, all of you can learn the rules now. All of you can learn the rules, create characters, and or watch an actual play video on how the game is played. Or like, on my best opinions as well is learning, just play the game. Learn by doing is another solution there. So afterwards, once you've finished your first session, do it all over again. And that's the thing. And if you want to expand further on new other other rule sets, other adventure modules and whatnot, then visit Drive-Thru RPG, HIO, Drive-Thru RPG, HIO, Fantasyverse, Bundle of Holding, and or Humble Bundle, so that you can have access to other content creators or other publishers who make RPGs as well. So before we end tonight's stream, I guess leave you everyone with this anecdote or in this statement. All right. Storytelling is one of humanity's oldest and most universal pastimes. Long before written language, people gathered around fires in villages and families to share stories, to entertain, to teach, warn, and connect. So, in today, think of tabletop RPGs as the modern campfire. We gather digitally or in person to co-create stories, inhabit characters, and explore worlds together, keeping that ancient human tradition alive. Yeah, in a way that's interactive, playful, and collaborative. All right. So with that out of the way, I guess I could end tonight's stream. It has been like a little bit more scruff because tonight was a bit hectic, wherein I was the only one at the moment on the stream, and at the same time, CJ and Gigi is under the weather, so I hope they all get well soon. And I would be seeing you guys again on Friday. I think Friday's the next stream as well. So I'll see you guys then, and keep rolling. I gotta work on like a closing tagline for our D3. I'm gonna note it down. But see you guys. Goodbye. Thanks for joining in.